When I went through my whole rebrand, I knew that this was like so much more than a new name and a new logo. Those things are representations of your brand. The brand is so much deeper than that. And really what it comes down to is like deeply, deeply understanding who are you at your core? What is that part of you that you haven't been letting out into the world? And if you're trying to fit yourself into a box and you're wondering why the people that you're trying to attract are not coming to you, right? Like they're not wanting to hire you, it's because you're not letting them see the real you. You're listening to the Bold Women in Business podcast, the show for women who are building something that actually matters and who are ready to stop hiding behind the polished and perfect and start showing up as their bold, magnetic, human AF selves. I'm Rachel Honeyman, your guide to finding your true magic and putting it front and center in your brand. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Quick pause. I want to tell you about a tool I use in my business every single day that I could not live without, NeedleCal. It's a calendar booking tool that lets anyone who wants to book a call with me, whether that's a potential client, an existing client, or anyone in between, to just click a link, pick a time, and boom, we're done. None of that back and forth email nonsense we all hate. I switched to NeedleCal from Calendly because, frankly, the pricing was getting ridiculous. And NeedleCal is not even in the same ballpark as any of their competitors. But they're not cutting corners. They offer the same features as everyone else, but they intentionally keep their prices low because they believe in making their products accessible to small business owners like you and me. And as someone who talks a lot about building a sustainable business, that mission means a lot to me. With NeedleCal, you can customize everything. You can brand your calendars, the settings are super flexible, and you can have as many calendars as you like. And I should know because I've got about 1 million of them. If you are paying through the nose for Calendly or another calendar booking tool, seriously go check out NeedleCal. The link is in the show notes and you can thank me later. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So this might surprise you, but I was a super weird kid. Okay, I'm joking. Of course, that doesn't surprise you because I'm super weird now. But I was like the kind of weird kid who just stuck out like a sore thumb and always like looked like a mess. I never let my mom come near me with a hairbrush, so my hair was always like disheveled. I did not know the first thing about being cool or looking cool. This was the 90s, so to be fair, fashion as a whole was pretty like nerdy, but even by those standards, I was the weird kid by and far. The cherry on top was I had divorced parents at a time when that was not the norm. I was one of just a couple kids in my class who had divorced parents. So that just sealed my fate as like the weirdo who always stood out. And I was like that kid who was just constantly laughing at my own jokes and like doing silly dances and just being a weirdo. Like, seriously, I was just a weirdo. And like now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, that is the kind of kid who I would have adored. Like I adore those kids now, like my friends' kids who are just like precocious and say the things that are super weird and just have like the weirdest thoughts going on in their heads and, you know, just basically act like there's no care in the world. Those are like basically my favorite kinds of kids. You're probably nodding along because all adults love those kids. But kids don't always love those kids, right? And so I struggled to make friends because kids are mean, right? That's just the reality. Kids are mean. And I really struggled to make friends and I just never fit in. That was just my reality. I never fit in. And it wasn't until 7th grade when I always say like I met my group of fellow weirdos and all of a sudden everything changed. So I kind of made this group of friends that were all equally weird. They were all kind of in the same boat. They'd all struggled to make friends in their own ways. Some I had been in school with for a really long time, but we just had never crossed paths. But then there were 3 girls who had just moved from New York that year. And so I grew up in Miami and they all moved there at the same time. And we kind of all found each other at the same time. And all of a sudden, I had this group of friends who kind of appreciated that I was a weirdo. Like, that was part of what they loved about me, that I just did things that were, I don't know, not conventional, right? And I was unique and I stood out and I wasn't the same boring, preppy, like in the box girl that we were surrounded by in our school. And I've talked before about how I went to a very religious school, and basically from elementary through high school, I grew up in like a very ultra religious environment. And so there was an expectation of conformity and really fitting the mold. And then on top of that, you have just the normal like peer pressure stuff that's going on. And you have just kids being mean. And I was in an all-girl school, and girls can be particularly mean, especially at that age. And so I really struggled until I found this like group of other girls who were, you know, just kind of in the same boat. And so somewhere around 7th or 8th grade, maybe it was 9th grade, I don't know. The middle school and high school were in the same building, so it's kind of all a blur to me. And I also have blocked out a lot of middle school and high school. Other than this group of friends, it was a pretty like traumatic experience, I'll say. So sometime around 7th or 8th grade, I started doing this thing at lunchtime. I have no recollection of like how long I did this. Did I do this every day? I don't think so. But I would put on these shows, and I basically would just kind of go into a classroom at lunchtime. We didn't have like a lunchroom. Everyone just kind of ate wherever they were. And so I would just go into a classroom, and whoever was there or whoever wanted to pay attention would just watch the Rachel show. And I would put on these shows. I don't even fully remember what I put shows on about, but I would do these like songs and dances. I would put on like one woman shows about my family chaos. Like, I had a lot of chaos in my life and my family. And I found ways to find humor in that. And I built this kind of following in my school where girls who I wasn't friends with would like join the Rachel lunchtime show. They would like go follow me to the classroom and watch my show. And I wasn't friends with them before or after I started putting on these shows, but it was like my group of friends. And I built this following of people who were interested in watching me. And people got a big kick out of it. And it was this entertainment. And especially in our very rigid, conformist type of environment, I think it was this like refreshing, different thing that it was just entertaining for people. And I think back on that version of myself who basically had like no self-consciousness, right? I was just happy to go and be and do my thing and be my weird self and just put it out there. And I wasn't weighed down by this intense fear of what are people going to think, because I had basically found my people, and I kind of felt like, screw it. Like, who cares? I tried really hard. I had like this 1 year, maybe 2 years, 5th and 6th grade, I think it was, where I like tried really hard to get in with the cool kids. And I tried to really tamp down my weirdness, and I tried to be cool, and it did not work. I'll tell you what happened. At the end of 6th grade, the ringleader of that group basically told me on the last day of school, she was like, you can't be friends with us anymore. Like, we are not friends. You're not cool, period. And it was super traumatic for me. But looking back, it was actually this blessing in disguise, because the next year when this group of friends kind of adopted me into their group, I think that if I had been still trying to fit in with the cool kids, I wouldn't have opened myself up to that. And so I wasn't like weighed down by that need to fit in at this point anymore. 7th, 8th, 9th grade, again, time is a blur. What is time? I would put on these shows and just be my weird self, and people were attracted to it. Again, that didn't like expand my friend group much. A little bit it did, but it didn't expand my friend group much. But it did change how I felt about like my standing in the awful social hierarchy that is middle school and high school. I felt good about having my friend group. I felt like I could be myself. And that's all despite being in a pretty like chaotic and unstable environment at home and really not feeling like I could be myself at home. That was definitely a present, ever present part of my story and my life, was that I couldn't be myself at home, but here in school, in this little microcosm, right? Like the lunchtime classroom with my group of fellow weird friends, like I could be myself and not worry about what people thought. That's really, really powerful. And then what happened? Then I got older, I graduated high school, and I started college and started putting myself more and more and more in a box, because that's what we do, right? We try to shrink ourselves into what's expected of us. I tried to dress a certain way. I tried to talk a certain way. I only signed up for classes that looked a certain way. I dated the guy that fit a certain mold who was totally wrong for me, right? I did all those things to kind of fit myself further and further and further into a box. And I actually had this moment. I'm sure I've talked about this before, so forgive me if you've heard me talk about this before. But when I was in graduate school, I went to grad school for a master's in English. And my plan was to go on for a PhD and to go into academia. That was the plan. It wasn't a plan that I had like dreamt of for a very long time. It just felt like the default thing to do. That felt like the thing that I was expected to do with a bachelor's in English. Go on for a master's and then go on for a PhD, go into academia. Boom, done, following the path. And about midway through my master's, I had this moment of panic where I just said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go into academia. I was teaching as part of my master's program. I had exposure to what it was like to work in academia. And I just had this epiphany one day where I was like, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. This epiphany actually happened at like 6 a.m., maybe even earlier, in the Houston airport. I had gone with my boyfriend, now my husband, but at the time we were dating, and we'd gone to visit friends, and we're on our way back to Florida. And just at 5 or 6 a.m., I just said to him, I don't want to be in academia. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? And I had this moment of like, well, what do you do? And I remember calling my dad and saying, I've decided I don't want to go into academia. And his answer was, well, are you going to go to medical school, law school, or become an accountant? Those were the only things that he could think of. And my answer to him was, well, I don't want to do any of those things, like at all. Those are not things that I want to do. I'm not sure what I want to do, but I'll figure it out. I wound up getting my first job out of grad school was working for a nonprofit doing their marketing. And that wound up being the path that I took. And that's how I wound up here today, 15 plus years later, right? That really set the path in a lot of ways. But along the way, I was still following this need to conform and be a certain expected version of myself. And I had really tamped down that Rachel who would put on those shows and be her full weird self. That really was set aside for a very long time. And even when I started my business, I didn't allow that to come forth for a really long time. When I launched my business, the name of my business was Honeyman Creative Solutions. It's professional. It has my last name in it. It has creative in it. It has solutions. Like, it's all accurate, right? Honeyman Creative Solutions. Sure. But it never felt like me, because how corporate is that name? Honeyman Creative Solutions is like such a corporate name. And at my core, I am not a corporate person. You know this by now, right? If you're watching this, you know I have like pink and lights and whatever. Like I'm not a corporate person. I've got purple hair, right? Like I'm not a corporate person. And I had been trying to kind of fit myself into this very professional mold, and it didn't work long term. It just didn't work long term. And so about a year into my business, when things were just not working, I knew that I needed to make a change. I knew that something needed to shift. And I went through this whole rebrand process and really identified, how do I want to show up in the world? And who do I want to be? And I kept coming back to Rachel in the lunchtime classroom, putting on the show, giving zero fucks about what anyone thinks, and just being herself and allowing that to attract people to her, right? And I wasn't trying to attract people to me, because I think that when you're trying to attract people to you, it shows, right? There is this neediness that comes through with that. I just had a conversation with someone earlier today who was saying, posting too often feels needy to her, and posting less often feels like okay to her. And I said, like, that's a mindset thing. That's internal. That's not coming from anyone else, because no one else is thinking that. But there is this feeling that when we are putting ourselves out there with the intention of attracting people to us, it feels needy. It feels icky. And it shows. People do see that, even if it's subconscious. But I think that when we show up as our true selves, and we show up without that self-consciousness that is telling us, you have to fit this mold. You have to be like this. You have to fit in a box. When we show up and we say, I'm going to be my full self, no matter how uncomfortable it makes some people, because people are uncomfortable when you show up with vulnerability, when you show up as whatever your essence is. You might not be the weird kid at heart. Like I am. I'm the weird kid at heart. And I feel like I've allowed that to come out. Like I've allowed myself to just be the weird kid. Like, who cares? I'm just going to be the weird kid. And it's going to make some people uncomfortable. Some people are not going to want to work with me because of that. Some people are not going to want to follow me because of that. But a lot of people are going to want to, because they feel seen by me just showing up and being myself. And yes, it has the downstream effect of attracting people into my orbit, into my universe. Because when you show up as your true self, people are going to be attracted to you. The right people are going to be attracted to you. They're going to want to be in your world. And you know this on the other side too. The people that you choose to get emails from and listen to their podcasts and follow them on social media and go to their workshops and join their courses, and the people that you continue to want to be connected to, there is a reason for that, because you feel seen by what they put out into the world. And my guess is those people are showing up as their true selves, because we're not really attracted to people who are faking it. We have this like internal ick monitor, right? Like this is just, we don't want it. And more than ever now in the age of AI, like we just don't want it. We don't want things that are fake. We want things that are real. And so when I went through my whole rebrand, I knew that this was like so much more than a new name and a new logo. Like those are almost afterthoughts. I always say this, like your logo and the name of your company, the visual aspect, like those things are representations of your brand. The brand is so much deeper than that. And really what it comes down to is like deeply, deeply understanding, who are you at your core? Who's that kid in you that wants to come out? What is that part of you that you haven't been letting out into the world? And then, yeah, like you want your brand and your name and the visuals and all of that to present that effectively, right? Because we respond also to visuals. That's part of like human nature. We respond to visuals. But really what it comes down to is, are you letting your true self out into the world? Are you letting your audience see who you are at your core, in your essence? And if you're not, if you're trying to fit yourself into a box and you're wondering why the people that you're trying to attract are not coming to you, right? Like they're not wanting to hire you, it's because you're not letting them see the real you. And those parts of yourself that you instinctually want to hide, because it's normal, it's natural to want to hide the parts of ourselves that don't conform, that don't fit in, that don't follow the mold, right? It's normal. It's social conditioning. We all want to fit in. It's a normal part of our development as humans. And honestly, it doesn't go away. Like it doesn't go away when you're past middle school and high school. It doesn't matter how long you've been in your career. You could be in your career for 30 plus years. You're still going to have that part of you that wants to fit in. But I am here to remind you that if you're trying to fit in with the wrong people, you're going to have people who turn around on the last day of sixth grade and say, you're not cool. You can't sit with us. The whole Mean Girls thing, right? You can't sit with us. It's real. It's real and it doesn't go away. Unfortunately, middle school never ends. It really, really never ends. So I want to remind you that there is so much power in letting the real you come out into the world, in putting on that lunchtime show and not caring what people think. And if you do that, you are going to have more people in your orbit. You're going to attract people to you. I think it's really important to say, and I forgot to mention this part, is I didn't magically find this group of friends, right? I found them because I was already being my weird self and they found me. One of my best friends in the world, we are still best friends, always says that when she first moved to Florida and came into school, the first thing she saw was me, little tiny Rachel. I'm really small. You may not know this, but I am sub 5 feet, really small. And I used to wear these like moon shoes. They were in style at one point, but I don't think the ones that I was wearing were in style ever. And I certainly don't think they were in style at this point. I never knew how to dress in style, but they were like these rubber, not even rubber. I think they were foam bottoms that were like these platform shoes. And then the top was like, kind of looked like a sneaker, but this is not a sneaker because it's a platform shoe. And it was silver, like metallic silver. And I was wearing these platform metallic silver moon shoes, basically. And I was stomping around having a tantrum, honestly. And I'm in like 7th grade. I'm way too old for this, but my sister and I were in the same building and we fought a lot growing up. We are on good terms now where we get along great. But when we were both in school, we fought like cats and dogs. And so she walked in and the school was like built around this open courtyard. So you could see everything. And she just saw me across the courtyard, like essentially having a tantrum, but like dressed in my weird shoes and like just being my awkward self and also not caring, right? Like I didn't care that people are like looking at me and I don't know, making judgments based on me having this very public spat with my sister and sibling rivalry and all of that. I just didn't care. I had a lot of passion, we'll say. As a kid, I still do, but I keep it better under wraps now. Or I will say I do martial arts now. So that's how I channel it. But as a kid, I didn't know how to channel it. And I just let it loose. And so that was her first impression of me and her first thought, because she was also like this weirdo who had a hard time making friends, was like, I want to be friends with her. Like, she looks spunky. She looks like she has some real character to her. And so just being my weird self attracted the right people to me. It took a long time. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was a hard, I don't know, first 6-7 years of school, right? Like, I had a hard time until 7th grade. I didn't have friends, really. And it was really, really tough. But it was a matter of the right people entering my orbit and being attracted to little weird Rachel and wanting to be my friend. And so I think that this translates into marketing in such a powerful way. It's not going to take you 6 or 7 years to like find your people, I promise you. But if you are putting yourself out there and you are being yourself and you're being real and you're being authentic, you're going to repel the people who are not the right people for you, and you are going to attract the people who are the right people for you. That is what is going to happen. So consider this your permission slip to just go be the weird kid in the classroom putting on the show. Just be yourself. Don't try to fit in with the cool kids. Be the person who you are at your core. And again, the person that you are at your core might not be the same person that I am at my core. It's probably not. It's probably your own version. But that is the person that you need to be letting out. You need to be letting her out because the people who relate to you, the people who are going to be your ideal fit clients, who relate to the thing that you put out into the world, the unique thing that you put out into the world that is your differentiator, that's the thing that makes you different, is that part of you that is hiding deep inside you that needs to be let out into the world. So go let her out. Let your freak flag fly. I cannot say that. Whatever. Close enough. And I'll see you next week. All right, beautiful human, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. This episode was brought to you by my company, Honeybee Bold, with music by Shmukulele, production by Podium Studios, and sponsored by NitoCal. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, hit subscribe, and don't forget to rate and review us. It really helps us grow and means the world. See you next time.